All right, good afternoon. Curator Coy here.
And Curator Tori.
And today we're going to be going over bearing a well-balanced diet, which is the fourth episode in our Facebook Live Kids Edition series. So just a reminder there on your screens, we would love everyone to join us here at Appalachian Bear Rescue every Tuesday, and it's always at 2 p.m. for the next several Tuesdays. Of course, this is free, and our hope is to help educate adults and children alike, not just about black bears, but we'll try to tie it in and do some general biology, other species, but we think it'll be a fun time for everyone. So we hope that you come back. For those of you that are new here with us today, please join us again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. as well.
All right, so for those of you who are new and those of you who aren't, I just want to do a quick recap of the other kids videos we have done so far. So our first one was bear hardware, teeth and claws, and just a couple things from main points from that presentation. Black bears are omnivores. They use their canines for ripping meat, the incisors, which are in the front of their mouth for cutting through plants and fruit, and those flat molars in the back of their mouth for grinding hard foods such as nuts into small pieces so that they can swallow. And they also use their claws for digging, climbing, and digging up roots, digging up larvae, and finding food that way as well. Our second kids episode was titled A Bear's Nose Knows Best, and if for those of you who watched it, this one was one of my favorite. It had a lot of great statistics about how great a bear can smell. They can smell 7 times greater than a bloodhound, and they use their sense of smell to find food, find each other, and to detect danger. And this is also sometimes what causes bears to get into trouble because they have such a great sense of smell. It can smell over such a great distance. They can smell our people food, garbage, trash cans, pet food, bird feeders, etc. from such a long way away, and they'll come looking for that. But we can also use their great sense of smell against them with bear spray as a safety precaution when hiking in bear country. And then our last episode was about bear hair, a compromise between care and comfort. Bears are mammals, just like all of us, and mammals have hair. Their top guard hairs are used to provide protection, and that under fur is important for insulation. Black bears can be any color of up to 6 different color phases, and they're all considered still black bears. Those are just different colors they can be. And color is not the best way to tell the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear.
All right, thank you, Curator Tori. And if you'll notice, our current resident bear, ABR bear number 284, raising her hand there. If any of you all have any questions for us during this episode, if you would, just post those, and we would be happy to go back at the end of the program and reply to all of your questions. We're choosing not to do those during the program so that we don't get stumbled up. So thank you, and we appreciate that in advance. So as said earlier, today's episode is titled Bearing a Well-Balanced Diet. We're going to learn all about a bear's diet. So exactly what are black bears stuffing their tummies with in the wild, as well as at ABR? As Curator Tori just recapped from the first episode, black bears are omnivorous, so they're omnivores. They enjoy eating both plant material as well as meat. To add to that, they're also opportunistic. So that just means they're going to seize any opportunity that they have and will enjoy a variety of foods. You know, whatever smells good to them is probably going to be a meal that they're going to pursue. So here's a little menu that we have put together of a black bear's diet. Everything from their appetizers, the cubby menu, all the way through lunch and dinner. Take a second to kind of look that over, and for you kids out there, see if you can think of anything off the menu that you would like to have. So we have together here some photos of wild bears first, enjoying these different things off of that menu. So first up are the appetizers. So the black bear pictured there on your left is tearing apart a log to get at some insects, an insect brood or larvae. And on the right, on your screen there, a black bear has found an opportunistic meal, so a chance occurrence of a deer species that has been hit and killed on the side of a road. And if I'm not mistaken, that was actually in Shenandoah National Park. So pretty cool, not that far away. Once bears exit their dens in the springtime, the first thing that they're going to see coming out is a lot of spring green up. So this is going to be the first stop for a black bear as well as other bears, and they're going to start munching on grasses, sedges, tender shoots and leaves, different or various types of roots. And this period of time regarding a black bear has actually been referred to as a negative foraging period. So what does all of that mean? It means that bears are working extremely hard to obtain calories, so to put on weight, but there's just not that much out there. But nonetheless, they're doing what they can, just like this bear pictured here. So also off the menu there, Sweet Summer Soft Mast. So we'll talk about soft and hard mast. And first up will be soft mast. That's going to include all of your berries. So you have blueberries, huckleberries, blackberries, a lot of the soft foods like those. And obviously this black bear pictured here is enjoying some blackberries during the summer months. Next up, hungry hard mast. So when the fall hits and acorns start falling off of the oak trees, as well as other nut species, hickory nuts and walnuts that fall to the forest floor, bears are going to be doing what we biologists will sometimes call the fall shuffle. So they're going to be searching far and wide, and activity is going to peak, and they're going to be looking for food where they can find it. And this is very important for the simple fact that they need to prepare for hibernation. So before they take their long winter nap, they need to make sure that their bodies are where they need to be and they have enough fat reserves. So they're going to gain a lot of that during this period of time. Also on the menu that you all saw there was mama's milk. So in the wild, this is how black bears nurse. So baby bears need milk just like baby humans, for all you kids out there, and the mother is able to provide that. And so this is a very important step in a bear's life. They're born so small, right out about 8 ounces or so about the size of a Coke can maybe. They're born blind and mostly hairless, but they do have their claws out, and as soon as they're born, they're ready to start nursing. And being so small, and other predators and other scavenger type animals being a lot larger than they need to grow quickly and develop quickly. So thankfully, mother's milk is adapted to provide a very fat-rich formula to help speed their growth and development up as much as possible. So it's pretty amazing, and we see this all the time at ABR, and you all will, following us, just how quickly a black bear cub grows.
Alright, and next up is a video that I have borrowed to show you all from a project that I worked on when I lived in Michigan. So we did a predator-prey project up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It was a 10-year project partnered between Mississippi State University, now State University of New York, and Michigan's DNR, studying all the different carnivores up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and which carnivore contributed most to the white-tailed deer population. So which carnivore was killing most of the deer up in the UP, and what outside factors were influencing their populations as well. So a lot of snowfall, car collisions, etc. So this video is a really cool clip from that project. They actually had put a GoPro on one of their collared black bears and could see what this black bear was foraging for. So I just want to play that for you all now. This part's my favorite because you can see this bear just munching on that marsh thistle, which has a lot of prickers on it, and this bear just doesn't care, and you can see it does not affect them like it would us. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. It's really, really neat. There's not a lot of videos like that, so just to give you kind of a down on the ground view from a bear's point of view, what they forage for, and how quickly they eat. You could see that camera rustling all around. Moving on from that, I want to go into an activity for you guys today. So on the next slide, there will be a menu with a few different meals. Portion sizes will be listed underneath them. And I want you all to pretend you're a bear preparing for hibernation. But these foods are obviously not bear-friendly foods. So you as a human, if you had to consume how many calories a bear had to consume to prepare for hibernation, what kind of meals would you pick out? So you can use a piece of paper. You can kind of just pick them out in your head and try to figure out how many of each sort of food you would need if you were going through hyperphagia. So hyperphagia is that phase during the fall when they're eating as much as they possibly can to sustain themselves throughout the winter time. So usually on a normal day of any other time of the year, bears consume between 5,000 to 8,000 calories a day. But during this time in hyperphagia, it is not rare for them to eat 20,000 or more calories per day and need to eat those calories in order to be ready for winter. Alright, so here's our menu. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes here to look over the menu. Remember, you need 20,000 calories per day. So imagine you're preparing your menu for the full day and pick out some of these items. The next slide will go over how many calories are in each of these. But for now, I want you to try and pick it out just based on your knowledge as of now. Alright, so now that you have your menu picked out, let's take a look at what menu items you have down and just try to calculate about how many calories you hit with what you guessed you would need to consume if you were a bear preparing for hibernation. All right, so to put it in perspective, if you had one of everything I had up on our menu, that's only about 10,915 calories. And I say only from a bear's perspective. To us, that's obviously a lot of calories. But from a bear's perspective, that's still only about half of what they would need to eat daily in the fall months. So here's what that would look like, double of about everything on our first menu. You can see there, that is crazy amount to imagine any animal just eating in one 24-hour period for multiple days, months in a row right before wintertime in order to sustain themselves through the winter.
So next up, let's talk a little bit about how do we feed bears here at Appalachian Bear Rescue. So first things first, we're always going to take precaution to make sure that we're trying to mask our human scent as much as possible. If you were following us there on an earlier episode, A Bear's Nose Knows Best, you'll understand that that could be extremely difficult. But anything and everything that we can do to mask at least some of the scent from these animals, we're going to do. And that does include wearing gloves every time that we are feeding, preparing food, anything that we handle that will come in contact with a bear. And it's obviously also a great idea to, when you're dealing with wildlife, to make sure you wear gloves anyways. So you can see pictured here 3 5-gallon buckets. That's not the number of buckets we always use. Sometimes there's less, sometimes there's more, maybe even double what you see. It just depends on how many bears we have here at the rescue, how big they are, and their nutrition requirements. Oftentimes we will use wheelbarrows full of food for bears. So it really just depends, but just to give you an idea about how we transport the food down to the bear areas. So what kinds of food do we actually feed our bears here at ABR? You can see pictured there on the left in the 5-gallon bucket, there are a ton of pecans or pecans, depending on where you're from. And we also have a couple buckets filled with bear diet there. So bear diet is not going to be discovered by bears that leave ABR once in the wild. However, this is a specially designed and formulated pelleted formula that we're able to provide bears with. It's going to ensure that they get all the nutrition, so all the trace elements and minerals that they're going to need, as well as the right amount of fat, protein, and carbohydrates to make sure that they grow strong and healthy as soon as possible. So bears, I'll remind everyone, are opportunistic. A question that I get a lot is, well, if you feed bears bear diet, are they going to be looking for bear diet once in the wild? Other rescues feed bears dog food or puppy chow, and I get questioned about that. Are bears going to be looking for those things in the wild? Remember from the earlier slides, bears are opportunistic omnivores. So basically they'll eat just about anything, and that doesn't matter if they've been in contact with it before or not. If it's on your porch and you leave it out and you live in bear country, they're going to seize that opportunity. So we just need to do what we have to do to make sure they get healthy and as big as fast as possible. So right here is a video of a bear eating carrion. Particularly, it's a shoulder of a dead white-tailed deer that was donated to us from a hunter. And so you'll get to see this is exactly what bears are going to do in the wild. If you remember the earlier slide of the bear in Shenandoah National Park feeding on that ungulate, this bear is going to be doing the same thing. So if we're given that opportunity at Appalachian Bear Rescue, we like to encourage them to do these things. Alright, so you got to see a bear enjoying some carrion here. Next up is a video of insects here in a log at ABR. So This was taken from our new camera system, which has been truly amazing in the things that we were able to capture. Not just our bears doing, but pretty much almost everything that goes on with within the wild enclosure spaces, and that includes this log that is just teeming with insects and insect larvae. And so enjoy this. So now you know that we have those things within our wild enclosure spaces, and we really try to cultivate our wild enclosure spaces to make sure that those things are available. We're not going in throwing logs filled with ant and ant larvae in all the time. We do that every once in a while, but particularly that happens in smaller enclosures or pens. However, we, as I said, kind of cultivate each enclosure space to produce as natural foods as possible. And whether that's creating or designing a wild enclosure space that encapsulates oak trees to have some wild mast, or making sure that there's rotten vegetation in there, vegetation that will eventually rot, to provide just an appetizer, if you will, for these bears. So here comes another video that I'll play, and it's going to show a bear capitalizing on a rotten log. So for those of you that were with us on our first episode on teeth and claws, obviously those things are coming into play in this video as well. All right, so here's a picture showing some bears here at ABR, actually earlier this year, enjoying some leaf lettuce that was thrown over. You can see in the picture, grass is starting to sprout up there. We do observe them eating that as well. And the point is to kind of illustrate as we go through these videos and pictures is that we try to replicate what our bears are eating here at the rescue seasonally. So basically as what they would be eating in the wild as well. So during the springtime, if we notice that there's not as much grass coming up in the enclosures, we'll throw more over. We'll throw over leaf lettuce or romaine lettuce or something like that. So as mentioned, for wild bears, sweet summer soft mass is obviously important and a staple for bears. A lot of folks will talk about hard mast and how it's important in the fall to get bears up to a good weight to prepare for the denning season. But I will go ahead and say, in earlier studies from right here in the Smoky Mountains have shown that soft mass is very important as well. Bears can put on a lot of weight through these excess sugars that they're going to process. So here's a video of a bear enjoying some fruit. I believe these in fact are persimmons. whenever we get the opportunity to gather acorns, we'll definitely feed those to the bears during the fall months if they're here. Sometimes we're able to work with local school groups and individual supporters of Appalachian Bear Rescue, and you would be truly amazed at how many acorns that they can provide us with. I know that one year I went, when I first started here, to Mary Blunt Elementary, and the kids had each gathered like a gallon-sized Ziploc bag of acorns, but you multiply that by every student in the school, and we had 2 truckloads of acorns to bring to the rescue. And if my memory serves me correct, it was about 660 pounds of acorns. So truly remarkable. The bears love them. It's a good way to get the kids involved and have a feel-good thing about what they are doing and get them outdoors. Other times I'm able to contact places such as East Tennessee State Nursery, and if they have a surplus of nuts during that year, I've went down there before and brought back, several hundred pounds of sawtooth oak acorns. But it's a staple here at the rescue as well. It's a staple in the wild, and if we have them, we will provide them. And I'll point out real quick is also, if you look at the picture in the middle at the bottom there, that acorn sitting on that bear's paw is not a coincidence. In fact, since I've been working here over the last 7 years, I have actually noticed that bears, when they eat peanuts, acorns, chestnuts, anything like that, they will crack them open and stick their paws out and use them as what I call a plate for the bear. And these are bears not just from Tennessee, the national park, they're from all over the southeast. Any state we get bears from, this is how I observe them eating nuts and acorns. So pretty cool.
All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we deliver these different food sources to our bears here at ABR in a hands-off way. So this picture I stole from Ben. I saw he gave this to you guys on our Facebook page a couple of days ago, and I thought it showed really, really well how our enclosures are set up to really maintain that hands-off motto that we have here at ABR, and that's because we want to maintain as hands-off as we can with all of our bears all the time so that they can be released and act just as a wild bear would once released. So you can see down in the far left corner we have our anti-intruder wires. So there is a first defense gate, an exterior fence, and once you're inside that, there's what we call our safety corridor, and then there's an actual perimeter fence around the enclosure, which is covered in black tarp, so the bears cannot see out, we cannot see in, and those are about 8 feet tall, and that separates the curators from where the bears are actually at. So once inside that safety corridor, curators will feed all along that black fence at multiple points to encourage natural foraging behavior. So we'll stop at one part, throw some food over, take a little walk down, throw some food over, and that just really forces our bears to use their sense of smell, look out for it, and have to find it like they would in the wild. And this is just a quick clip to show you how we deliver the food. Like we said, it's all hands off and it's not fancy, but we just throw the food over so that they can't see us with the food and make that correlation between human and food. So there you have it. Like I said, again, it's not fancy, but it is the best way to keep as hands-off as we possibly can. We don't want the bears ever to see us dropping a pile of food in one spot in their enclosure. That does not mimic foraging behavior in the wild, and that shows that humans are directly delivering them food, which they will not be once they're released. For cubs, very similar. So we actually wear this ski mask. It looks like we're going to go rob a bank here to hide our face so that the cubs do not correlate human face with feeding them. I would be wearing gloves if I was feeding a cub. This is a picture of me, Curator Tori, with the mask on, but I just took that picture to show you guys. But if there was a cub I was going to be feeding, I would be wearing gloves as well. Notice I'm also wearing dark clothing, which we try to do. And oftentimes when we go to feed the cubs, we try to mimic the den as best as we can. So when we would feed Bear 300 or Ramsey, we would oftentimes dim the lights, have just a lamp on, or even just use a flashlight sometimes to keep it as dark as possible, like it would be in the den for the cubs. On the right there, you can see our formula that we use. We usually do 2 parts formula to 3 parts water, and then we also warm the bottle. Depending on how big the cub is, will determine how much food that they get and how often they get fed. We were feeding Bear 300 about every 3 to 4 hours.
So here are a few pictures showing young bears or neonate age cubs that come into the rescue. Usually that's going to be anywhere from early March through mid to late April when they're going to be this small or in this general ballpark of size. If they come in closer to the 1st of April, they are going to require to be bottle fed, and which is the picture you see there on the top left. However, if they come in, say, mid to late April, bottle feeding may not have to occur. In the wild, these bears would definitely be nursing from the mother on their own. However, at ABR, we have set our facility up and our procedures and protocols to really gear bears to develop more quickly. And so the first thing we'll do, if we think a bear is up for it, is we'll try to encourage that bear to lap from a dish. So the picture on the bottom right there is filled with the same formula that the bear on the left is receiving in a bottle, but it's in a bowl. And so if we can get those bears to be weaned from the bottle, it's just going to facilitate minimizing contact and help that bear in the long run. So here's a quick little video you'll get to enjoy of a bear cub, a neonate. And for you kids out there, neonate is just a very young animal, or even a human. It's just like, so this is a baby bear that still requires bottle feeding. This bear could not lap at this age. All right, so there you have it, bottle feeding a little bear cub, in case you ever wonder how we do that. And you will notice that curators, as Tori mentioned earlier, are wearing gloves. And you'll also notice that that bear's position is not facing back toward the curator. So whenever we're feeding these young guys and girls, we're making sure that their focus is not on us. But they're still going to feel our warmth, our touch through the gloves. And that is important emotionally for a animal as young as these. So here's another video, and so this is a candidate for a bear cub candidate for lapping from a dish. So, you know, it's the first thing I'm going to try. If I get a bear in today, tomorrow, anytime this week, I'm going to see first thing if I can get it to lap from a dish. I don't like having to go backwards because of contact, but if we need to, we will. We obviously have to make sure the bear will eat. But so this is a bear under those circumstances, and it was kind of on the border of lapping from a dish or being weaned from the bottle. So this little cub here, obviously lapping some formula up or milk off of the pen floor. If my memory serves me, I do not believe that it would actually lap it out of the dish itself, but it had stepped in it or tipped some over, and then it decided to lick it up off of the floor, which is fine. You know, it's getting into the bear, and the bear's going to notice that, you know, it tastes good, it's good for it, it fills it up. So usually you'll have things like this happen before they just go right up to a bowl and start lapping it up. So this is really cool. Something else that we do here at Appalachian Bear Rescue, we use a lot of food enrichment, and that does not mean that we are giving bears treats or rewards for behavior. We're just, you know, trying to replicate things that they would find in the wild. Normally these orphaned bear cubs and yearlings would have the opportunity to watch mom, you know, excavate logs and do all of these sorts of things and tear open trees to find foods and all of that good stuff, especially the younger cubs. So we try to replicate that. We can't go in there ourselves and show a wild bear, you know, how to do these things and expect it to be released as a wild bear. So if you look at the picture on the left, we've basically taken some tree bark and in the center of that we'll put blueberries, applesauce, a combination of different fruits and things like that. And you can see I've tied those together and made a sandwich using honeysuckle. So everything there is natural, other than say the applesauce. Bears won't find that in the wild, but they will find blueberries and stuff. And if you look at the middle picture, that is in our first cub house that we have down the hill here, and a bear has obviously found that, unraveled it, and got the goodies inside. So they're not going to find this in the wild, but they are going to find logs, and they are going to learn that that could mean food or a potential meal. So that's why it's so important. On the far right photo there, you have a log that curator David made for us, and he kind of etched it out in order to hold some fruit, and it has wooden dowels that he actually fashioned as well, and we could put those two halves together, and it's actually a lot harder to get apart than say the one I did with bark and the honeysuckle vines. So they really have to work at it, and this is important not only for learning that these logs and things like that could have food in them, but also it's important when you have a captive animal to kind of help pass some time. It gives them something else to do and not focus on being in a captive situation. So this is something that's really cool. I'm pretty proud of this. Every once in a while I'll get a wild hare kind of idea, and that's what happened this day. I was thinking about some other food enrichment opportunities for the bears in our care and something that I could throw over the fence. And so I found this pine log and took a drill and made several holes in and around it from all angles. And then I took some honey that was donated to us and honeycomb, stuffed those holes full of it because I knew they would have to work and to get it out of those little bitty notches. And then I also took some super worms or mealworms, the same worms that I'll feed my leopard gecko or my son's leopard gecko at the house. So it's pretty cool, and I just kind of put those in there with it. And it's just another fun, neat idea to provide our bears with, and it again helps pacify the time, or helps the time pass by, and it gives them something nutritious to eat as well. So this is here are a few photos from early on when I started here, maybe 2013. But that just looks like a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket filled with dirt. But if you look at there on the right, on that zoomed in photograph, you can see there are ants and ant larvae inside of that. So I'll show you on the next slide what I did with those things. You'll notice that there's a plane flying over. This is back before we had a camera system, but the good news is they'll hear planes flying over the Smokies as well. So just some more food enrichment ideas. Here are some wasp larvae, and the bears love those as well.
Just something I want to jump in and add about that wasp larva. If anybody watched our bear hair episode, just remember how they're really thick fur, and those guard hairs help protect them from stinging insects. So eating a bunch of wasp larvae or going after a honey nest is not something that bears are worried about.
So how can we tell what wild bears have been eating if we don't have cameras on them? So here's a little quick lesson in Scatology 101. I can't give you credit for this course, but it'll just be experiential, so just bear with me. And pictured there on the left are some fox grapes that you will find growing in the wild, and then you have it again there on the right, although it's part of bear scat. So it's really a good, looking at scat is a really, or bear feces is a really good way of telling, what they have been eating. And so here's another bear, and all of these, by the way, are outside bears, or bears that have been here around the ABR property, just not in our care. So they've wandered by at some point. If I see scat, I'll investigate, take photos, what have you. Obviously, this bear has been into some corn. Here's another outside bear, I believe from enclosures 3 and 4 on the outside of those. I found this scat in the grass there, and it appears that it has been into some bird seed, maybe some black oil sunflower seed. So if we know what we're already feeding bears at Appalachian Bear Rescue, why should curators still think about scat or look at their scat for bears that are here already? And so what that's going to present a couple different case studies here. Shown right there is ABR Bear 245, or his nickname was Cornelius, for those of you who may have been following us for a while. And, you know, this little bear, when he first come in, he was, like many others, starved and emaciated. We had him in a smaller enclosure space where we can keep a close eye on him before moving him out to a wild enclosure. And we noticed that his food intake wasn't exactly what it needed to be, and that was fast forward a little bit of time, and we also noticed in his scat that he eliminated or let out fragments of a balloon. In fact, there was a red balloon pieces that kept coming out until he cleared those. However, he just wasn't, you know, able to feed and grow as he should. Thankfully, that was resolved on its own after he passed out the balloon. But these are things that we're looking for, because they could be indicators of a problem that's internal that we otherwise would not see, and it could mean life or death for a little bear cub. And speaking of life or death for a little bear cub, Bear 236 actually ended up swallowing a black rubber glove, and it totally really messed this bear up, and we had to take him to the University of Tennessee, which you can see pictured there from x-ray and veterinarians working on him. They had to do an emergency endoscopy to go inside the bear and retrieve the glove and pull it out. Otherwise, this bear would not have lived. So it's just a perfect example of how looking at scat of bears that we have here could mean, you know, are they going to make it or are they not?
Going off of the scat, I just also want to mention another relation to our bear hair episode. I mentioned briefly in that you can also tell what a bear's diet is from a hair sample. So once a hair sample is taken, scientists can then test the hair for carbon and nitrogen to see what sources of protein and energy a bear has been eating. They can also test hair for heavy metals such as mercury to see if that bear has been eating salmon or fish. And they can also tell if they've been eating mostly wild foods or human food sources. And just one hair sample can give about 5 to 6 months of data about a bear's diet. So all in all, after our whole bear food presentation, just a reminder that trash kills bears, both directly and indirectly. It can cause early rotting of their teeth, which is really bad for any wild animal. They need those teeth indefinitely to be able to continue to eat the sort of wild things that they need to eat. It also puts them in danger being near people. It puts people in a dangerous situation as well as the bear. And it's also unhealthy for them. So if you can imagine a bear just like knocking over a trash can and consuming a whole bag of candy, just like that's unhealthy for us, it's unhealthy for them as well. And this is a quote that really wraps that up too. I just finished reading Kim Delogier's first Bear in the Back Seat book. Research has also shown that some bears that get food conditioned on garbage go through a physiological change and may never be able to feed naturally as a wild bear again. So not only are they really smart, they have a great sense of smell, it's easier to knock over a trash can and get food, but it also has shown that they go through an actual physiological change and changes that bear for good, where they may not be able to feed as a wild bear again.
All right, so just as another reminder for any of you living in bear country who may have bird feeders out, as you can see in the photo here, black bears will enjoy eating birdseed. In fact, if you'll recall the slide that Curator Tori was going over earlier, and a bear needing, say, over 20,000 calories a day during the period of hyperphagia, a black bear can honestly get that many calories in about 8.5 pounds of birdseed, which can be done, let's say, in a matter of 30 minutes or so. So very important. If you have bird feeders out in the spring and you live in bear country, you want to make sure that those are not out on your porch. Or same thing with dog or cat food. If you have outside pets, you want to bring all of that stuff back inside. And we believe if we just do our part and try to mitigate human-bear conflict by protecting bears from having access to human foods, it's going to keep people and bears alike safe. And so, that's what we're about. That's what we want. And if we do everything that we're supposed to, we'll get to have this right here happen. So this was sent in by one of our supporters here locally. And you could see this black bear family group, even though they live in bear country and bears are going through their yard, they're not staying around or sticking around to do anything they shouldn't, because we know these supporters and they do everything that they're supposed to be doing to make sure that no pet foods or bird foods are available. So just another quick reminder about our Kids Edition, Facebook Live Kids Edition classes. Here's the schedule posted up again. And so you can see that the next one will be April the 28th, Tuesday at 2 p.m. And it is titled Time Out Bear Denning Behavior. So that'll be really cool. We hope that all of you that are joining us here today will come back to be a part of that one. And please tell others about us. We love doing this to educate the community, kids and adults alike. And until next time, this is Curator Coy.
And Curator Tori.
Thank you all so much and have a great afternoon.